Poor mother hugs her daughters in a square to keep them warm, until a billionaire finds them and changes everything. The snow was falling heavily that March night, the kind of snow that cuts the skin, that freezes your bones before it even soaks your clothes. The wind howled between the skyscrapers, carrying icy flakes that felt like tiny blades. Adam crossed the central square with his head down, hands buried deep in the pockets of his black coat, his breath forming white clouds in the freezing air. He always took the same route, always at the same time, always alone. That's how he liked it. No surprises, no variations, no people. Routine was his shield, solitude, his protection. No one got in, no one stayed, no one mattered. But that night, something made him stop. On the wooden bench covered in snow, right in the middle of the square, dimly lit by a weak streetlight, 3 figures huddled together under a blanket too thin for that cold. A young woman, dark hair tied back with an old elastic band, held 2 small girls tightly against her chest. Blonde, pale eyes wide with cold and fear. The youngest one was shaking so much her teeth were chattering. "Mommy, it's cold." The voice was thin, broken, almost a muffled sob. The woman pulled them both closer, rubbing their little arms over their thin coats. "I'll warm you up." But Adam saw the truth. She was shaking too. Her hands trembled as she held her daughters. Her lips were blue. Her whole body was shuddering. The blanket covering them had holes. The girls' shoes were soaked, almost falling apart. The bag next to the bench seemed to contain everything they owned in the world. Adam stood still a few feet away, hidden by the gloom. His mind screamed at him to move on. It was what he always did. Don't get involved. Don't care. Don't let anyone into his life. But his feet wouldn't obey. The older girl, perhaps 6 years old, buried her face in her mother's neck, trying to shield herself from the wind. The little one, no more than 4, whimpered softly, trying to hide her frozen hands beneath the blanket. Adam clenched his fists inside his pockets. He turned to leave. Took 3 steps. 4. He stopped. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath. He turned back. "My place is close," he said, his voice coming out rough. "It has heating and milk." The woman slowly raised her face, as if afraid to look. Her eyes were sunken, tired, desperate, distrustful too. She looked at Adam, sized him up from head to toe. Then she looked at her trembling daughters. Then at the soaked bag, then at the snow that wouldn't stop falling. She began, but her voice failed. Adam didn't press. He just stood there, waiting, the snow falling on his shoulders. The woman bit her lip. She squeezed the girls tighter, looked up at the dark sky, then at the frozen bench. "Please," she finally murmured, her voice almost inaudible. "Just for tonight." Adam nodded. She stood up slowly, with difficulty, holding a daughter's hand in each of hers. Her legs were shaking. She picked up the wet bag and almost fell. It was too heavy. Adam reached out his hand without saying anything. "I'll carry it." She hesitated, looked at him again, then handed it over. They started walking. The wind howled between the abandoned buildings. The snow clung to the girls' eyelashes, to their blonde hair that shone under the weak light of the streetlights. The youngest stumbled on a frozen puddle, but her mother caught her before she fell. Adam slowed his pace without a word. He didn't look back. He just walked slower. No one spoke during the walk. Only the sound of their steps sinking into the snow. The cutting wind and heavy breathing filled the silence. 3 blocks later, Adam stopped in front of an old, dark brick apartment building. He climbed 4 steps covered in ice and opened the main door with his key. Then he climbed 2 more flights of creaking stairs to the 3rd floor. The apartment door was simple, faded brown, no markings. Adam turned the key in the lock and pushed the door open. Inside, everything was too organized, too clean, too empty. A small living room with a grey couch without cushions, a round table with 2 wooden chairs, a bookshelf with books lined up by size. No pictures on the wall, no photos, no color. It was the kind of place where no one really lived, just existed. Adam turned on the electric wall heater. The appliance hummed softly before starting to release warm air. "The bathroom is there," he indicated with his head, pointing down the hallway. "There are towels. You can take a hot shower." The woman opened her mouth to thank him, but Adam had already turned his back and headed to the kitchen. He filled an old kettle with water and put it on the stove. He opened the white cabinet and took out a package of powdered milk, sugar, and 3 mugs. When he returned to the living room, the woman was still standing in the same spot, the girls clinging to her legs. "We were evicted," she said suddenly, her voice emotionless. "3 days ago. They only let us leave with 1 bag. The rest, only after I pay." She let out a short, bitter laugh. "But I have no way to pay." Adam didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. He just placed the mugs on the table. "The couch folds out into a bed," he said without looking at her. "There are blankets in the hall closet. 2nd door." She stared at him for a long moment. Adam felt the weight of her gaze, but didn't look back. "Why are you doing this?" The question hung in the air. Adam didn't know how to answer. Maybe there was no answer. So he didn't reply. He went back to the kitchen when the kettle started whistling. He carefully prepared the hot milk, added sugar to all 3 mugs, stirred slowly, brought them to the living room. The girls took the mugs with their 2 small hands, blowing on the steam. The youngest took a sip and smiled for the first time since Adam had seen them. "It's yummy," she whispered, her voice thin and sweet. The older one drank in silence, her eyes fixed on the mug, but Adam saw her shoulders relax. The mother drank too. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if holding the warmth inside her. "Thank you," she said softly, looking at Adam. "Truly." Adam nodded and went to fetch the blankets. When he returned, the woman was already taking off the girls' wet coats. Their blonde hair was plastered to their foreheads. Their cheeks, red from the cold, were beginning to regain color. Adam placed the blankets on the sofa and stepped back. "I'm going to sleep," he announced, pointing toward the hall. "If you need anything, the kitchen is there. You can use whatever there is." He went into the small bedroom and closed the door softly. He stood in the dark, leaning against the door, listening to the sounds from the other side. Water running in the bathroom, light footsteps on the floor, low whispers between mother and daughters, the creak of the sofa as they settled down. Sounds that house had never heard before. Adam sat down on the edge of the bed, his hands resting on his knees, staring at the floor. He had always lived alone. He always wanted to live alone. There was no space in his life for other people. There was no space for noise, for mess, for unpredictability. But tonight, for the first time in years, Adam had opened the door to his house. And without knowing it, unintentionally, he had also opened the door to his life. On the other side of the wall, one of the girls asked in a sleepy voice, "Mommy, are we going to stay here?" There was a long pause. "Just for today, sweetheart," the mother replied, her voice tired. "Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do." Adam closed his eyes in the dark. He knew he should have walked straight past the square. He knew he had just complicated his life in a way he couldn't foresee. But even so, even knowing all this, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Perhaps because, for the first time in a long time, the house wasn't completely empty, or perhaps because, deep down where he never looked, neither was he. Adam woke up at the usual time, 6 in the morning. Not a minute more, not a minute less. He lay there for a few seconds, looking at the white ceiling of the bedroom, listening to the silence of the house. Then he remembered. He wasn't alone. He sat up slowly, rubbed his face with his hands, and just sat there, processing. 3 people sleeping in the living room. 3 strangers he had brought home the night before. What had he done? He got up, put on the jeans he had thrown over the chair, and a grey t-shirt. He carefully opened the bedroom door, trying not to make a sound, expecting to find the 3 still sleeping on the couch. But when he walked into the living room, he stopped at the threshold. The table was set. 3 mugs lined up precisely, a sugar bowl in the center, slices of toasted bread on a white plate, the kettle still steaming next to the stove. Anna was standing by the window, looking out at the empty street. She was wearing the same clothes as the day before, but had pulled her dark hair back into a low bun. Her shoulders were tense, rigid. On the couch, wrapped in the blankets Adam had given them, the 2 girls were sleeping deeply. The older one hugged the little one, protecting her even in her sleep. Their blonde hair was spread out on the pillow, their faces finally relaxed. Anna turned around when she heard Adam's steps. Her eyes were tired, with dark circles, but alert. She hadn't slept, or had slept very little. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper so as not to wake the girls. I thought you might want coffee. There wasn't much in the kitchen, but I made it with what I had." Adam stood still, unsure what to do. He wasn't used to this, to people in his house, to coffee made by someone else, to someone taking care of something other than himself. "You didn't have to," he said, more harshly than he intended. "I wanted to," Anna replied simply. "It's the least I can do." She pointed to the table with a hesitant gesture. "Please, before it gets cold." Adam approached slowly. He pulled out a chair, and the creak sounded too loud in the morning silence. He sat down and picked up one of the mugs. The coffee was hot, strong, simple. He took a sip. "It's good," he murmured. Anna nodded, but didn't move from the window. She just stood there, her hands crossed in front of her body, as if she didn't know if she could sit down, as if she were waiting for permission. Adam looked at her, then at the empty chair. "Sit down," she hesitated, looked at her sleeping daughters, then at Adam. Then she walked to the table and sat on the edge of the chair, as if ready to get up at any moment. She picked up the mug, but didn't drink. She just held it, letting the warmth heat her hands. The silence weighed between them. Adam ate a piece of bread. He chewed slowly, unsure what to say. Conversation wasn't his strong suit. It never had been. "Thank you," Anna said suddenly, her voice low but firm, "for yesterday, for today, for everything." Adam shrugged, uncomfortable with the gratitude. It was cold. "Even so," she insisted, "most people would have walked right past. I would have walked past if it was someone else sitting on that bench." She looked at the mug in her hands. "We're leaving today. I just needed one night, for them to rest, for me to think. We've abused your kindness enough." Adam stopped chewing the bread. He looked at Anna, then at the girls sleeping on the sofa. The youngest had her mouth slightly open, breathing softly. The older one had frowned, as if carrying worries even in her dreams. He swallowed the bread with difficulty. "Where are you going?" Anna was silent for a long moment. "There's a shelter about 2 miles from here. They said they accept families. We'll stay there until I can get a job. Then I'll rent a small room, something small. Just enough. Do you have money?" The question came out more direct than Adam intended. Anna lowered her eyes. "No, but I will get some. I always do." "How?" "Work," she said, her voice gaining a defensive firmness. "I've worked all my life. Laundry, cleaning, whatever comes up. I'm not lazy. I just had bad luck." Adam didn't answer. He just took another sip of coffee. Bad luck. Such a small word for such a big situation. He finished his coffee in silence. He stood up, took the mug to the sink, washed it, dried it, put it away in the cabinet, each movement automatic, part of a routine he'd had for years. He grabbed his coat from the hook next to the door. "I'm going to work," he announced, pulling his arms into the sleeves. Anna stood up immediately, placing her still full mug on the table. "We'll be out before you get back," she said quickly. "I'll leave everything clean, like it was. You won't even notice we were here." Adam stopped with his hand on the doorknob. He stood with his back to her, staring at the closed door. He wouldn't notice they were here, but he would notice. Of course he would. He would notice the silence, the empty house, the table without morning coffee, the absence of life. He opened his mouth, closed it. The words wouldn't come. Then he just nodded and left. The door closed quietly behind him with a soft click. Adam slowly descended the stairs, crossed the street, and headed to work as he always did. Bus on the corner, 20-minute commute, time card, production line. But something was different. He couldn't stop thinking about the 3 figures in the apartment, about Anna's quiet gratitude, about the forced dignity of someone who had nothing left but still tried to keep her composure, about the girls sleeping on the couch, finally warm. At work, Adam assembled parts on a production line. He always did the same thing: placed screws, tightened them with the electric wrench, passed the part along. The noise of the machinery filled the warehouse. The smell of oil and metal. He didn't talk to anyone. He didn't eat lunch with his colleagues. He ate alone in a corner of the cafeteria. A simple sandwich, staring at his phone without really seeing anything. That's how he liked it. But that day, the silence wasn't as comfortable as before. He kept wondering if Anna had left yet, if she had found that shelter, if the girls were cold again, if they had eaten anything. He shook his head, annoyed with himself. It wasn't his problem. He had done enough. He had provided shelter for one night. He had helped. Done. Over. Everyone went their own way, but the uneasy feeling wouldn't go away. When his shift ended, Adam punched out and left. The sun was already low, painting the sky orange and pink. The cold had eased a little, but it was still biting. He walked home at the same pace as always. Bus, 20 minutes, walked to the building, climbed the stairs. He stopped in front of the apartment door. The key felt heavy in his hand. Part of him expected to find the house empty again. Clean, organized, silent as it had always been, as if the night before had never happened. Part of him dreaded it. He turned the key in the lock, pushed the door open slowly, and stopped. There were clothes drying over the back of the couch, small towels, children's t-shirts, tiny socks carefully draped, small shoes lined up by the door, still damp, too small to be real. On the living room window, taped with clear adhesive tape, was a drawing made with a blue pen. Simple, childish, crooked lines, a house with a triangular roof, 3 people holding hands in front, a huge sun in the top corner with rays going out in all directions. Adam dropped his backpack on the floor with a dull thud. He stood still, looking around the room. They hadn't left. He walked slowly to the window, as if afraid the drawing would disappear if he approached too quickly. He stared at the crooked lines, the disproportionate figures, a child's attempt to express something she couldn't say with words. He reached out his hand. His fingers touched the tape. He pulled it off carefully. The paper came away from the glass. He held the drawing for a few seconds, looking, thinking. He crumpled the paper in his hand, took 2 steps toward the trash can in the corner of the room. He stopped, looked at the crumpled paper in his clenched hand. He opened his fingers, smoothed the drawing against his thigh, trying to uncrease it. He went back to the window, taped it back onto the glass, smoothing the tape with his fingers, adjusting it so it was straight. He stepped back and looked at the room with different eyes, the clothes on the couch, swaying slightly with the air coming through the window crack. The small shoes at the entrance, tiny and worn, the drawing taped to the glass, reflecting the weak afternoon light. Mess. Things out of place. Disorder in the space he had built to be perfectly organized. Life invading the emptiness. Adam sat down on the sofa, moving around the clothes, and stared at the blank wall in front of him. The mess bothered him. It always had. Since childhood, he liked everything clean, tidy, predictable. Everything in its place. No surprises, no changes. No people disrupting his routine. But as he looked at the small shoes by the door, at the clothes drying, at the drawing on the window, he realized something that caught him by surprise. The total silence would bother him more, much more. Because now, he knew what it was like to have voices in the house, what it was like to wake up and find coffee ready, what it was like to see signs of life scattered throughout the room, and to return to the complete emptiness after knowing how different it was. That would be worse. He heard light footsteps in the hall, the bathroom door opening, low voices talking, muffled giggles. Anna appeared in the living room first, drying her hands on a cloth. The girls were behind her, their blonde hair still damp from the bath, wearing the same clean clothes. Anna stopped when she saw Adam sitting on the sofa. Her face went pale. "Sorry," she said quickly, looking at the clothes. "I was going to take everything out before you got back. We're leaving soon. I was just waiting for the clothes to dry a little. They can't go out in the cold with wet clothes." "You don't have to leave," Adam said, his voice coming out strangely hoarse, almost a whisper. Anna blinked, confused. The girls looked at him with wide eyes. "What?" You don't have to leave, Adam repeated, looking at the floor. At least not today, not tomorrow either. But I can't, Anna began, her voice shaking. How you can, Adam interrupted, until you find a real place, a job, something stable. Anna was silent for a long moment. The girls clung to her legs, not understanding what was happening, but sensing the tension in the air. Why? Anna finally asked, her voice cracking. Why are you doing this? You don't know me, you don't know them. Why help? Adam didn't know how to answer. He didn't have a logical answer. It made no sense at all. He had always lived alone. He always wanted to be alone. He didn't need anyone. He didn't want anyone. He had built an entire life based on that. But he looked at the girls with blonde hair and pale eyes, too thin, too quiet, and then at Anna, too proud to ask but too desperate to refuse. And he realized that maybe need wasn't the right word. Maybe it was want, and that scared him more than anything. You can stay, he said simply, getting up from the couch, but tomorrow we're going to the grocery store. There needs to be more food here, and other things. He went to the bedroom before Anna could answer, before she could see the confusion on his face. He closed the door and leaned against it, his hands shaking slightly, his heart beating too fast. What had he just done? He had just invited 3 strangers to live in his house, in his life, in the space he had built specifically not to have anyone. He was crazy, completely crazy. But on the other side of the thin wall, he heard Anna's choked voice. We can stay a little longer, girls. And the sharp voice of the youngest, full of relief. Mommy, is the man nice? A pause. I think so, my love. I think so. Adam closed his eyes and let his head fall back, gently hitting the door. For the first time in years, the house wasn't empty. There were clothes drying on the couch, small shoes at the entrance, a drawing taped to the window. There was life. And even though the mess bothered him, even though everything was out of place, even though his routine had been completely destroyed in less than 24 hours, the total silence would bother him infinitely more, because now he knew the difference. He knew what it was like to wake up and not be completely alone. He knew what it was like to have coffee ready waiting for him. He knew what it was like to see a child's drawing and feel something strange tighten in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in so long he had forgotten the name. Maybe it was hope, or maybe it was just the feeling that for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just existing within those walls. He was starting to live, and that changed everything. The first thing Adam noticed was the noise. It wasn't loud, it wasn't bothersome, but it was there, filling the spaces that were once completely silent. Children's voices talking softly in the morning, muffled giggles coming from the room that used to be a storage closet, light footsteps running from the bathroom to the living room, the clang of the faucet being turned on and off, the clinking of spoons against mugs during coffee, the scraping of chairs on the wooden floor, sounds that house had never heard before. It had been 2 weeks since the night of the snowstorm. 2 weeks since Adam had let 3 strangers into not just his house, but his routine, into his life. And the routine was changing, without him fully realizing it, without him consciously deciding it, simply happening, one day at a time, one small alteration after another. The first week, Adam had come home and found the kitchen reorganized. The plates he kept on the top shelf were now lower, within reach of smaller hands. The pots that were on the left had migrated to the right, closer to the stove. The sugar bowl was no longer inside the cabinet, but on the counter, always available. He had stood in the kitchen doorway, staring, the annoyance rising in his throat like bile. Everything was different. Out of place, wrong. But he didn't say anything, because Mia had started to reach for the cups by herself in the morning, because Anna could cook without having to ask where everything was, because the girls could grab a cookie without having to ask for help, because it made sense, even if his brain screamed that it didn't. The next day, he had bought a new rug for the entrance. He hadn't planned to, it wasn't on the list. He was walking back from work, past a hardware store, saw the dark grey rug displayed in the window, and just walked in, paid in cash, brought it folded under his arm. When he got home, he simply placed it in front of the door, where the girls and shoes were always piled up. The girls had run to him, screaming with joy as if it were Christmas. "Look, Mommy, look how pretty, is it ours?" Anna had come out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a cloth, and looked at Adam with her usual expression, half suspicious, half grateful, half confused. "You didn't have to." "Wet shoes were ruining the wood floor," he replied, taking off his coat and hanging it on the hook. A lie. The floor had been stained for years, old scratches, marks from furniture being dragged, but it was easier than admitting the truth, that he had bought it because he wanted to, because he had passed the store and thought of the girls, because it had started to feel right to have something that said, "You can take off your shoes here, this is a safe place." 3 days later, he had hung extra hooks in the hallway. Anna only had 2 blouses, the girls, 3 outfits each, all worn and too small. Everything was piled up on the one old hook that was on the wall, constantly falling to the floor, forming a sad heap by the baseboard. Adam bought 5 hooks at the hardware store near work. Nothing expensive, nothing fancy, just simple, sturdy metal hooks. He arrived home in the late afternoon, got the dusty drill he never used, and started drilling holes in the wall. The noise of the drill had made the girls run to see what was happening. "What are you doing, Mr. Adam?" Mia asked curiously. "Hooks," Adam replied, measuring the distance between each one. "Why?" "For you to hang your clothes." Lily had clapped her hands, excited. 15 minutes later, it was done. 2 hooks at Anna's height, 2 lower, at the girl's height. An extra one, just in case. "Done," he said when he finished, putting the drill back in the toolbox he hadn't opened for years. The youngest, Lily, had touched the lowest hook with her fingertips, slowly, as if afraid it would disappear. "Is it really mine?" "It's yours." She had run to the bedroom, returned with the worn pink jacket she wore every day, and hung it up with such care that she seemed to be handling something made of crystal. She smoothed the fabric with her little hands. She smiled. "Look, Mia, I have a hook all to myself." Adam couldn't get that image out of his head for days. Her smile. The genuine joy for something so small. A $3 hook on the wall. And then he realized he was getting home earlier. Not by much. It wasn't obvious. 15 minutes, 20 at most. He would catch the earlier bus instead of lingering in the locker room at work. He would get off 1 stop early and walk faster. He would take the stairs 2 at a time instead of going slowly. He didn't admit the reason to himself. He just did it. He told himself it was because he was tired, that he wanted to get home quickly, that the later bus was more crowded. But the truth was there, clear and obvious as the midday sun. He liked coming home and finding the house alive. He liked hearing the girls playing in the room that was once only used to store old boxes. He liked the smell of simple food in the kitchen. He liked seeing Anna folding clothes at the table, humming soft songs he didn't know. He liked opening the door and hearing "You're home" instead of absolute silence. He liked not being alone. And that scared him as much as it comforted him. On a late Thursday afternoon, Adam arrived home from work and found Anna in the kitchen, finishing dinner, simple pasta with homemade tomato sauce, nothing elaborate, nothing sophisticated. But the smell filled the entire apartment, making his stomach rumble. "Do you want to have dinner with us?" Anna asked without looking at him, stirring the large pot with a wooden spoon. Adam stopped in the middle of the living room, his backpack still on his shoulders, surprised by the question. "What?" "Dinner," she repeated, finally turning her face to look at him. "I made enough for everyone. And you always eat alone in your room." "Every day. I thought maybe you'd want to eat here tonight, with us." He hesitated. He always ate alone. He always preferred it that way. Since he was a child, eating was a biological necessity, not a social event. He saw no reason to turn it into anything more than it was. It was more efficient to eat quickly, alone, without conversation. But Anna was looking at him with that half-expectant, half-nervous way. And the girls had appeared at the bedroom door, their curious little eyes watching the scene. "Are you going to eat with us, Mr. Adam?" Lily asked, hopeful. Adam looked at her, then at Mia, who didn't say anything but seemed equally interested in the answer. Then at Anna, who had turned back to stirring the pot, pretending not to be waiting. "All right," he said finally, his voice quieter than he intended. Anna smiled discreetly, her back to him, but Adam saw the way her shoulders relaxed. Great. Sit down. It's almost ready. Adam dropped his backpack on the floor next to the couch, went to the bathroom, washed his hands with soap, dried them, and returned to the living room. He pulled out the chair, the same one he always used, and sat down. The girls settled into their chairs with contained excitement. Mia, the older one, sat with her back straight and her hands in her lap, too well behaved for her age. Lily swung her little legs, which couldn't reach the floor, tapping her heels against the wooden chair in an irregular rhythm. Anna brought the steaming pot and began serving, pasta on each plate, red sauce on top. A few pieces of sausage that Adam had bought at the grocery store 2 days earlier, without anyone asking. She placed a plate in front of each girl, then in front of Adam. Finally, she served herself and sat down. "Enjoy your meal," she said softly. They began to eat. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, just present, filled by the sound of cutlery scraping against plates, chewing, breathing, and the wall clock Adam had owned for years but never really heard. The pasta was good, simple, but well seasoned. The sauce tasted like real tomato, not canned. Adam ate slowly, which was unusual for him. Then Lily tried to pick up her glass of milk. Her small fingers, still clumsy with large objects, couldn't hold it properly. The glass slipped between her hands. It tilted. It tipped over. The milk spread across the table in a second, quickly running to the side, dripping over the edge, falling onto the floor with a wet sound. Lily completely froze, her pale eyes wide with pure terror. Adam also froze. Milk on the table, on the floor, dripping from the wooden edge, forming a puddle, mess. His hand squeezed the fork tightly, his jaw locked, the muscle in his neck tensed. Anna jumped up, already reaching for a cloth on the counter. "Lily, be careful. How many times have I told you to use both hands?" "It's fine," Adam said suddenly, his voice sounding strange even to himself. Lower, softer. Anna stopped in mid-movement. She turned and looked at him, surprised. "What?" Adam slowly placed the fork on the edge of the plate. He took a deep breath. He looked at Lily, who was on the verge of tears, her little hands trembling over the wet table, her lower lip quivering. "It's fine," he repeated, this time more firmly, more convincingly. "It's just a towel. Just clean it up." Lily blinked several times, confused, still expecting to be scolded. Adam calmly stood up, walked to the sink, took the dishcloth from Anna's hand, and returned to the table. He began to wipe the milk with slow movements. He wiped the table, cleaning up all the liquid. He wiped the floor, bending down. He wrung the cloth out in the sink until all the milk was gone. "There," he said, putting the wet cloth back on the counter and returning to his chair. "You can keep eating." Lily looked at him with those enormous eyes, still scared, still processing. "You're not mad?" "No." "You won't yell?" "No." Mia spoke for the first time, her voice low and careful. "The man at the last house got very mad when we dirtied anything. Once he threw his cup on the floor on purpose and said we had to clean it all up." Adam looked at her. He saw the tension in her small shoulders. Then he looked at Anna, who had lowered her eyes and was stirring her food without eating, her jaw tight. He felt something squeeze his chest. Anger, not at them, at whoever that man was. "I'm not the man from the last house," Adam said firmly, looking at the two girls. "It was an accident. Accidents happen. To everyone. It's really not a problem." Lily let out a shaky sigh of relief. Anna slowly raised her face. She looked at Adam with an expression he couldn't quite decipher. Gratitude? Surprise? Deep relief? Maybe all of it mixed together. She smiled. A small, discreet, almost shy smile, but genuine, real. "Thank you," she said softly, only moving her lips. Adam just nodded once and went back to eating, as if it were no big deal. But it was. Dinner continued, more relaxed now, the tension gone. Lily ate slowly, holding the new glass, which Anna had refilled, with both hands firmly. Mia talked about a pigeon she had seen at the window earlier, building a nest on the neighboring building's ledge. Anna mentioned that she had gotten an interview at a laundry facility for the following week. and she was hopeful because the owner seemed nice, and Adam listened. He didn't talk much. He never talked much. He was never a man of many words, but he truly listened. He paid attention to the stories. He nodded when appropriate. He asked short questions. He answered when asked. For the first time since he could remember, he ate dinner with company, and he didn't feel uncomfortable. He didn't feel like getting up and running to his room. He didn't feel the suffocating weight of other people invading his space. He didn't feel angry at the disruption of his sacred routine. He felt something completely different, something akin to belonging, as if he were in the right place, with the right people, at the right time. When they finished eating, Anna began clearing the plates and stacking them on top of each other. Adam automatically got up to help. "I'll wash," she said, taking the stack to the sink. "I'll dry," he replied, already grabbing the clean dish towel. She looked at him with genuine surprise, but didn't argue. She just gave a small smile and began washing. They stood side by side at the small kitchen sink, Anna washing carefully, soaping each plate, Adam drying thoughtfully, putting each one in the right place. The girls drawing at the table behind them, using the colored pencils Adam had bought 3 days earlier at a stationery store. 12 basic colors. "You didn't have to do this," Anna said softly, washing a plate with circular movements. "Do what?" "Everything. The rug, the hooks, the pencils. Having dinner with us. Being patient with them." Adam took the wet plate she handed him and began to dry it carefully. "You live here," he said simply, as if that explained everything. "Temporarily," Anna corrected, but her voice lacked conviction. He didn't answer. He just continued drying the plate, put it away in the cabinet, and grabbed the next one. But they both knew the truth. Temporarily was starting to feel less and less temporary. 2 weeks had turned into 3, 3 weeks into a month, and no one talked anymore about Anna looking for another place. No one mentioned shelters. No one made plans to leave. Because the truth was crystal clear. The house was changing. The grey rug at the entrance, the 5 hooks in the hallway, the colored pencils in the drawer, the extra mugs in the cabinet, the perpetually full milk in the refrigerator, the colorful towels in the bathroom that once only had a white one, the children's soap next to the normal soap. Small changes, almost unnoticeable if you weren't paying attention, but significant, profound. And Adam was changing too. He came home earlier from work. He bought things without anyone asking. He ate dinner at the table instead of alone in his room. He listened to stories about pigeons and drawings. He cleaned up spilled milk without complaining, without even frowning. The rigidity he had carefully built around his life for years was giving way, not completely disappearing. Not melting all at once, just becoming flexible, softening at the edges, letting cohabitation seep into the cracks, letting people occupy the empty spaces. That night, after the girls went to sleep, with a story Anna read in a low voice, and after Anna settled onto the couch covered with blankets, Adam lay in his dark room staring at the ceiling he couldn't see. He listened to the sounds of the night house, the deep, regular breathing of the girls. Anna shifting on the couch, adjusting her position, the wind howling outside, the heater humming softly in the hall. Sounds of life, sounds that he had spent years, decades, actively avoiding. And now he couldn't imagine the house without them. The routine he had built with such care and dedication was being stolen, altered, transformed, invaded. But for the first time in his life, Adam didn't care, because he had discovered something fundamental he had never known before. Routine wasn't the same as living. Routine was safety. It was control. It was predictability. It was protection against chaos. But living was mess. It was unpredictable. It was spilled milk and children's voices and extra hooks and new rugs and dinners at the table and conversations about pigeons. Living was sharing space. It was giving up control. It was adapting. It was changing without realizing it, one day at a time. And for the first time in his adult life, Adam was truly, genuinely living. The house was changing, and so was he, and maybe, just maybe, this was the best change that could ever have happened. It started with the fruit. Adam was walking home from work on a rainy Friday when he passed a street vendor's stall on the corner. Bright red apples stacked in a wooden crate, yellow bananas hanging in bunches, large oranges, strawberries in shallow baskets. He stopped. He stood there, his hands in the pockets of his damp coat, looking at the colourful fruit under the stall's top. Then he remembered Lily mentioning the night before that she had never eaten a strawberry, 6 years old, and she had never tasted a strawberry. She said she had seen one in an old magazine and thought it was pretty, red like a heart. Adam looked at the strawberries, then at the grey-moustached vendor. How much for a pound? He bought a pound of strawberries. Then he bought apples and bananas and 3 golden pears. He climbed the apartment stairs with the heavy paper bag swinging in his hand, feeling slightly foolish. It was just fruit. No big deal. But his heart was beating faster than normal. He opened the apartment door and walked in, shaking the rainwater from his coat. The girls were sitting on the living room floor, drawing with the old pens Anna had. Anna was folding clothes on the sofa, separating them into small piles. Adam placed the bag on the table without saying anything. "What is that?" Anna asked, stopping her folding. "Fruit and put," he replied, taking off his wet coat. Lily dropped her pen and ran to the table, her bare feet pattering on the floor. She climbed onto a chair and stuck her head inside the bag. "Look, Mia, there's a lot." Mia came slower, always more cautious, but her pale eyes lit up when she saw them. "Can I have one?" Adam nodded. "You can." Anna took the strawberries, washed them in a colander, and put them on a white plate. The girls ate slowly, savoring each piece as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Lily smiled broadly, her lips stained red. "It's sweet, so sweet. And pretty," Mia added, examining the strawberry in her hand before biting into it. Adam just nodded and went to the bedroom to change his clothes. But when he closed the door, he leaned against it for a moment, listening to the girls' laughter from the other side. Something small had shifted inside him, something he couldn't name. The following Saturday, he brought a box of coloured pencils. Not the cheap ones with 6 colours. A large box with 24 different colours, fine tips, quality wood, vibrant colours. He left it on the table without wrapping paper, without a bow, without ceremony. When the girls woke up and saw the box there, they were silent for a few seconds, just looking. "Is it for us?" Mia asked, her voice so low it barely came out. "Yes," Adam said, drinking coffee in his chair. Lily opened the box with such care that she seemed to be opening something sacred. She picked up the yellow pencil and held it against the window light, watching the shine of the wood. "I've never had real colored pencils," she whispered, turning the pencil between her fingers. "Me neither," Mia agreed, touching each pencil with her fingertip. Anna stood by the sink, wet hands forgotten in the air, just watching the scene. When Adam stood up to wash his mug, she touched his arm lightly. "Thank you." He just shook his head, rinsed the mug, and left for work. But throughout his shift, while tightening screws on the production line, he thought about the girl's bright eyes, the reverent way Lily had held the yellow pencil. On Tuesday, he brought 2 small notebooks, nothing special, simple covers, one light blue and one baby pink, white, unlined pages, but new, unused. He placed them on the table before going to take a shower. When he came out of the bathroom, his hair still damp, the girls were sitting on the floor, each with her notebook, drawing with absolute concentration. Mia was drawing a house with square windows. Lily was drawing something that could be a cat or a dog. Neither of them thanked him with words, but Lily held up her notebook for Adam to see, proud. "Look what I made, Mr. Adam." Adam stopped and really looked. The drawing was just scribbles and strange shapes, but there was dedication there. "It's beautiful," he said, and it was true. Lily smiled so wide her eyes almost disappeared. The following Thursday, he brought a children's book. He had seen it in a used bookstore near work. He passed it every day, but had never gone in. That day, something made him stop and push the glass door open. The book was in the children's section, colourful cover with a drawing of a girl in a blue dress and a huge brown bear. A little worn at the edges, but in good condition. The story of a girl who gets lost in the woods and finds a bear who looks scary but is gentle. It cost very little. Adam paid in coins. He left it on the table as he always did. No warning, no explanation. Anna picked up the book when she returned from the laundry interview, ran her fingers over the worn cover, and looked at Adam with that expression he still couldn't decipher. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "I know," he replied, taking off his shoes. "Then why?" Adam stopped. He stood there holding a shoe, thinking. He didn't have a ready answer. Or he did, but he couldn't put it into words. Words were never his strength, because he saw the way the girls looked at the simple things he brought, because he liked seeing those shy smiles, because the house was starting to feel alive in a way it never did when it was just his, because for the first time in his life, he genuinely wanted to give something to someone, without expecting anything in return, just because. "I just wanted to," he said simply, shrugging, and went to the bedroom. Anna stood still in the living room for a moment, looking at the closed door, the book in her hands, a gentle expression on her tired face. The girls never made a fuss over the gifts. They never jumped up screaming or asked for more. They just thanked him with bright eyes and shy smiles, and somehow that meant more to Adam than any words could. The house was no longer just his. The girls' drawings were taped to the refrigerator with magnets Adam had bought. The colored pencils were neatly organized in a blue mug on the table. The notebooks were always nearby, filled with colorful scribbles. There was life in every corner. And for the first time, Adam didn't want it to be different. One Friday night, after a simple dinner of soup and bread, Anna sat on the couch with the book Adam had brought. "Come on, girls. I'm going to read the story." They ran and settled on both sides of her, snuggled up, their eyes fixed on the book. Adam was washing the dishes at the sink, listening, always listening. Anna opened the book and began to read in a soft voice, giving different voices to each character. The girl had a high voice. The bear had a deep, funny voice. The girls giggled softly at the right moments. "Mr. Adam," Mia called out suddenly, turning her head. Adam stopped washing, his hand still holding the plate. "Do you want to listen with us?" The silence weighed for a few seconds. Anna looked at him, but didn't say anything. She just waited. Adam slowly dried his hands on the cloth, looked at the three of them on the couch. Then at the bedroom, where he usually locked himself after dinner. "I can," he finally said. There was nowhere to sit. The couch was taken. The chairs were too far away, so Adam simply sat on the floor, leaning his back against the wall, legs stretched out in front of him. Anna continued reading from where she had stopped. Adam listened, silent but present. Totally present. The story was simple. The girl got lost in the dark woods. She became afraid of the shadows and sounds. She found the huge bear. She was scared at first. She cried. She wanted to run away. But she slowly discovered that the bear was gentle and caring. They talked. They played. They became unlikely friends. In the end, the bear helped the girl find her way back home. When Anna finished and closed the book, Lily yawned loudly. "I liked it," she said sleepily. "Me too," Mia agreed. Anna looked at Adam, who was still sitting on the floor, his arms resting on his knees. "And you?" "Good story," he said. Anna smiled. A small but genuine smile. "Come on, girls." Time for bed. They grumbled a little, but obeyed. Anna took them to the bedroom, helped them change their clothes, and tucked each one in with affection. When she returned to the living room, Adam was still sitting on the floor, looking at the wall. Anna sat on the couch, folding her legs underneath her body. "They liked having you here," she said softly. Adam didn't answer immediately. He just kept looking at his own hands. "I liked it too," he finally said, his voice almost inaudible. Anna tilted her head, watching him. "You're different from what I thought at first." "How so?" "When you stopped in the square that night, I thought you were, I don't know, someone doing charity. Someone who would help us out of pity and then move on." Adam looked at her. "And now," Anna took a moment to answer, choosing her words carefully. "Now, I think you needed us as much as we needed you." The words hit Adam like a punch to the gut, because it was true. He had lived alone for so long. He had built walls so high around his life that he had forgotten what it was like to have people nearby, what it was like to care, what it was like to belong to something bigger than himself. Maybe, he admitted softly. Anna stood up, grabbed a blanket, and started making her bed on the sofa. "Thank you," she said without looking at him, "for the fruit, for the pencils, for the notebooks, for the book, for everything." "You don't have to thank me." "I do," she insisted, finally looking at him, "because you don't do this out of obligation. You do it because you want to, and that means everything." Adam got up from the floor, feeling his knees crack. "Good night, Anna. Good night." He went to the bedroom and closed the door slowly. He sat on the bed in the dark, just thinking. For the first time in his life, he had participated in something without needing to control it. He had sat on the floor and listened to a children's story, not because he needed to, not because he should, but because he wanted to. He had brought small gifts without expecting anything in return, without making a fuss, without seeking recognition, just because seeing the girls happy made something strange happen inside him, something warm, something good. The house was no longer just his. There were voices, laughter, drawings on the refrigerator, colored pencils on the table, books on the couch, small shoes at the entrance. There was family, not in the traditional sense, not on paper, but in what truly mattered, people who cared about each other, people who shared space, food, time, life. Adam lay on the bed, still dressed, and closed his eyes. On the other side of the wall, he heard Anna settling onto the couch. He heard Lily's soft sigh in her sleep. He heard Mia shifting under the blankets, sounds of life, sounds he had avoided for decades. And now he couldn't imagine living without them. The small gestures had turned into big changes, fruit on the table, colored pencils in a mug, books read at night, stories shared. Adam had started by just giving shelter for one night, but he had ended up giving something much bigger. He had given a home, and in the process, he had found one for himself. The house was no longer just his, and for the first time in his life, he didn't want it to be. He wanted the drawings on the refrigerator. He wanted the pencils scattered around. He wanted the children's voices. He wanted the stories at night. He wanted to sit on the floor and just be present. He wanted to belong. And finally, after so long building walls, he had let someone in. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And that made all the difference in the world. The snow had finally stopped falling. After almost 6 weeks covering the city with its icy blanket, winter had offered a truce. The sun appeared shyly between the grey clouds for the first time in a long time. The streets began to show the dark asphalt beneath the melting ice. Adam woke up that Saturday morning and noticed the different silence outside. Not the muffled silence of falling snow, but the clear silence of a cold, dry day. He got up, went to the window and looked out. The sky was beginning to clear. Some people were already walking in the streets without having to hunch against the biting wind. The worst had passed. When he left the bedroom, he found Anna standing in the living room, looking out the window too. The girls were still sleeping, wrapped up in their blankets in their room. "The snow stopped," Anna said without turning around, her voice strangely neutral. "It did," Adam agreed, going to the kitchen to make coffee. Anna was silent for a long moment. Adam put water in the kettle, turned on the stove, and grabbed 2 mugs. "Adam," she finally called out. He stopped. She rarely called him just by his first name. It was always Mr. Adam or just a gesture. He turned to her. Anna was still facing away, looking out the window, her arms crossed in front of her body. Her shoulders were tense. "I think we've abused your hospitality enough." The words dropped into the air like heavy stones. Adam stood motionless, his hand still holding the mug. "What?" Anna finally turned around. Her face was serious, determined, but her eyes held something more. Sadness, perhaps, or guilt. "You gave us shelter when we needed it most. You've been more than good to us. But it's been almost 2 months. I need to find a place for us. A place of our own." "You have a place," Adam said, his voice coming out harsher than he intended. "Here." Anna slowly shook her head. "This is your house, Adam. It always has been. We were just..." Staying for a while. But it's not right to continue like this. Why not? Because I need a real fresh start, she replied, her voice firm now. I got the job at the laundry facility. I've already received my first pay. It's not much, but it's enough to rent a small room. The girls need stability. They need a home that is theirs. They can't grow up depending on the kindness of strangers. I'm not a stranger, Adam said softly. Anna smiled, but it was a sad smile. No, not anymore. But even so, I need to do this. For them. For myself. I need to prove that I can take care of my daughters on my own. Adam opened his mouth to argue, to say it made no sense, that they could stay, that there was space, that he wanted them to stay. But he looked at Anna's face and saw the determination there. He saw the pride. He saw her need to feel capable, and he understood. He didn't agree. But he understood. When? He only asked. Today, in the late afternoon, I found a room near my work. It's not big, but it has heating. And the boarding house owner accepts children. Adam nodded slowly, unsure what else to say. The kettle began to whistle, cutting the heavy silence. He turned off the stove and mechanically prepared the coffee, but he no longer wanted to drink it. The rest of the day passed in a strange fog. The girls woke up and Anna told them. Lily cried. Mia was silent, but her eyes were wet. Anna patiently explained that they would have a place of their own, that it would be good, that Mr. Adam had been very kind, but now they needed to move forward. Adam stayed in his room most of the time. Not because he was angry, but because he didn't know how to act. He didn't know what to do with the tightness in his chest that seemed to grow every hour. In the late afternoon, as the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, Anna packed their belongings into the same old bag she had arrived with. The girls' clothes, the notebooks Adam had given them, the colored pencils carefully put back in the box. You can leave the pencils, Adam said, standing in the bedroom doorway. I'll buy others if I need to. No, Anna replied softly. They were gifts. We're taking them. She called the girls. They put on their worn coats, put on their used shoes. Lily held the bear book against her chest. They walked to the door. Anna turned to Adam. Thank you, she said, her voice choked. For everything. Truly. You saved us that night. And you gave us much more than shelter. You gave us hope. Adam couldn't answer. He just nodded. Lily ran to him and hugged his legs tightly. I'm going to miss you, Mr. Adam. He bent down, got to her height, and for the first time touched the girl's blonde hair with affection. I'll miss you too. Mia came slower, but also hugged him. Adam felt his eyes sting and blinked quickly. You are nice, Mia whispered in his ear. No matter what you think, you are. They let go. Anna picked up the bag, held her daughter's hand in each of hers and opened the door. She looked at Adam one last time. Take care of yourself, she said. Are you too? And then they left. Adam stood in the doorway, watching the three of them go down the stairs. He heard their footsteps fading away. He heard the building door close. He walked into the apartment and closed the door slowly. He stood in the middle of the living room, just looking around. Everything was clean. Anna had tidied everything before leaving. The blankets were folded on the couch. The table was clean. The floor was swept. The sink was empty. Everything organized. Everything in its place. Everything as it was before. But it wasn't the same. The drawings had been taken off the refrigerator. The extra hooks in the hall were empty. The rug at the entrance no longer had small shoes on it. The room that had become theirs was empty again. The house was silent, completely silent. No children's voices, no laughter, no light footsteps, no curious questions, no stories at night. Adam walked to the window and looked out at the street. He tried to see if he could still spot them, but they were already gone, disappeared into the late afternoon crowd. He sat on the couch where Anna slept every night. It was still warm from her body, but it would soon get cold. He looked around the clean, organized living room, exactly as he had always wanted. Everything in its place. No mess, no disorder. But now he realized the truth he had tried to ignore. The house wasn't just silent. It was cold, truly cold. Not because of the temperature, the heater was on, but because of the absence, the emptiness, the loneliness. He had forgotten how much it hurt. For 6 weeks, the house had been alive, full, warm, and in a few hours, it had returned to what it had always been, empty. Adam leaned his head against the sofa and closed his eyes. For the first time in many years, he felt something he no longer knew he was capable of feeling. Loneliness. True, deep, painful loneliness. The snow had stopped falling outside, but inside the apartment, the cold had returned with full force. And this time, Adam knew the difference. He knew what it was like to have warmth, to have life, to have people. And now that he had lost it, the cold felt much, much worse than before. Adam woke up at the usual time, 6 in the morning. He lay there looking at the ceiling, waiting to hear the sounds he had become accustomed to hearing. Light footsteps, low voices, the creak of the bedroom door opening. But there was only silence. Complete and heavy silence. He got up slowly, put on his jeans and put on his t-shirt. He opened the bedroom door and looked at the empty living room. No one had set the table, no one had made coffee, no one was waiting for him. He walked to the kitchen, his own steps sounding too loud in the silence. He filled the kettle, put it on the stove, waited. The ritual was the same as always. The same one he had performed for years before Anna and the girls arrived. But it seemed different now. It seemed mechanical, empty, aimless. When the coffee was ready, he poured a mug and sat at the table, took a sip. It was tasteless. Or it had a taste, but Adam couldn't perceive it. It was just hot liquid going down his throat. Nothing more. He forced himself to finish it, washed the mug, dried it, put it away. He grabbed his coat and left for work. At the factory, he assembled parts as he always did. Screw, electric wrench, tighten, pass it along, repeat. But his mind was far away. He thought about the girls. If they were all right in the new room, if Lily had cried herself to sleep, if Mia was taking care of her sister as she always did, if Anna had managed to rest or had stayed up worrying. "Hey, Adam," a colleague called out. "You all right, man?" "I am," he answered automatically. But he wasn't. When he returned home in the late afternoon, the walk seemed longer, the stairs heavier, the key in the lock harder to turn. He opened the door. The house was still clean, organized, silent, exactly as he had left it in the morning, exactly as it had always been before they arrived. But now it felt wrong. He took off his shoes, dropped his backpack on the floor, and went to the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator. There was food, leftovers from yesterday. He could heat it up, but he wasn't hungry. He closed the refrigerator and stood in the middle of the kitchen, unsure what to do. Before, at this time, the girls would be drawing at the table. Anna would be preparing dinner. There would be the smell of food, the sound of conversation, life. Now there was only silence and the low hum of the heater. He went to the living room and sat on the sofa. The same sofa where Anna slept, where he had listened to stories, where the girls snuggled up to hear them. He ran his hand over the worn fabric. He could still imagine the three of them there, but it was only imagination. They were no longer there. He looked at the refrigerator. The marks of the magnets were still there, small cleaner squares where the drawings had been taped for weeks, but the drawings were gone. He looked at the table. No colored pencils, no notebooks, no scattered paper. He looked at the hooks in the hall. Empty. Only his coat hanging on the usual hook. He stood up and walked to the window, and stopped. The drawing was still there, that first drawing Lily had made. The house. The three people holding hands, the huge sun in the corner, taped with adhesive tape to the glass. The only remaining sign of life in the apartment. Adam stood looking at the drawing for a long time. The crooked lines, the disproportionate figures, the childish simplicity. He reached out his hand, touched the paper with his fingertips. He didn't take it down. He couldn't take it down. It was all that remained of them there. He returned to the sofa and sat down again. He just sat there, looking at the empty space ahead. Night fell. Adam didn't turn on all the lights, just the one in the living room. The apartment was dimly lit. He should go to sleep. He had work the next day, he needed to rest. But he stayed sitting there, thinking. For the first time in his life, Adam understood the difference. He had always lived alone. He always thought he liked it that way. Solitude was safety, it was control, it was peace. But now he realized solitude wasn't peace. It was emptiness. For 6 weeks, he had experienced something different, something he hadn't known was missing. Company, presence, people who cared, people he cared about, and now that it was gone, the emptiness had returned. But it was worse than before, because now he knew how different it was. He knew what it was like to wake up and not be completely alone. He knew what it was like to have voices in the house. Laughter, small problems, spilled milk, drawings on the refrigerator. He knew what it was like to have a family, and the lack of it hurt in a way he had never felt before. It wasn't the lack of an object, it wasn't the lack of something that could be bought or replaced. It was the lack of people. Of Lily asking questions with that thin voice, of Mia drawing in silent concentration, of Anna making coffee in the morning, of stories read at night, of small daily gestures that filled the house with meaning. Adam looked around the clean, organized room. Everything was in its place, everything as he had always wanted. No mess, no disorder, no surprises. But it meant nothing, because there was no one there to share it with. He finally stood up, went to the bedroom, and lay down on the bed still dressed. The bed seemed enormous. It had always been the same size, but now it seemed too big, too empty, too cold. He lay there looking at the ceiling in the dark, listening to the absolute silence of the house. Silence that was once comfort, that was once desired, that was once sought after, but now it was just emptiness. He thought about Anna and the girls in the small room at the boarding house, sleeping together, crowded but together, having each other, while he was here, alone, in the silent house, with all the space in the world, but completely empty. He closed his eyes, trying to sleep, but sleep didn't come easily, because for the first time in a long time, Adam didn't want to be alone. He didn't want the silence. He didn't want the empty house. He wanted the voices back, the light footsteps, the laughter, the mess, the life. He wanted them back. And that realization, that need for other people, was as frightening as the loneliness he now felt. Because it meant that something had changed inside him, something fundamental. He had learned to live with people. He had learned to care. He had learned that solitude was not peace, but absence. And now he didn't know how to go back to who he was before. He didn't know how to live alone anymore, because he had experienced something better, and there was no forgetting it. On the other side of the window, in the living room, the drawing was still taped to the glass. The house, the people holding hands, the bright sun. The only sign that, for a brief but significant time, that house had been a home. And now it was just an empty house again, cold, silent, and profoundly lonely. 3 days passed, 3 days of an empty house, 3 days of heavy silence, 3 days of Adam trying to resume the routine he had before, but failing miserably. On the 3rd day, a grey Saturday, Adam went out for a walk. He had no destination. He just needed to get out of that house that felt like the walls were closing in around him. He wandered aimlessly through the streets, still dirty with melted snow. He passed the square where he had found the 3 of them that night. The bench was empty now, covered in ice. He kept walking. He turned a corner, then another, and stopped. There, in front of a community support center, they were... Anna held a girl's hand in each of hers. She was talking to a woman in a lab coat holding a clipboard. The girls were quiet, clinging to their mother. Adam's heart raced. He stood still on the sidewalk, watching. Part of him wanted to leave, not to bother them, to let them get on with their lives. But his feet wouldn't obey. Lily was the first to see him. Her pale eyes widened. "Mr. Adam!" She let go of her mother's hand and ran. Adam instinctively bent down, and the girl threw herself into his arms. "You came to see us," she said, squeezing his neck tightly. Mia came right after, slower, but with a shy smile on her face. Anna turned around. Her face showed surprise, then something more, relief perhaps. She said goodbye to the woman in the lab coat and walked toward Adam, who was still bent down hugging the girls. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he replied, slowly standing up. An awkward silence hung between them for a few seconds. "Are you all right?" Adam finally asked. Anna nodded, but her eyes told another story. "We are. We got temporary shelter. It's not bad. It has beds, hot food. The girls are safe. But we don't like it," Lily said suddenly. "Too honest. There are too many people, and it's noisy, and we have to share the room with other families." "Lily," Anna gently admonished. "But it's true, Mommy," the girl insisted. Anna sighed, looking tired, more tired than Adam remembered. "I'm looking for a better job. The one at the laundry didn't work out, but I'll find something. I'll start over on my own. It just needs time." Adam looked at her, at the girls, at the clothes that were already getting small again, at Anna's tired eyes, at the stubborn determination on her face mixed with thinly disguised desperation, and something inside him broke. "The house was empty without you," he said, his voice choked. Anna blinked, surprised. "Adam." "No," he interrupted. He needed to say it. He needed her to know. "I tried to go back to the routine. I tried to live as before, but I can't. The house is clean, organized, silent, exactly what I always wanted. But it's empty." He swallowed hard, the words struggling to come out. "I was abandoned once, when I was a child, in the system. They said I was difficult, that I had no heart, that I didn't know how to love. And for a long time, I thought it was true. I built a life alone because I thought that's what I was. Someone who didn't need anyone." The girls looked at him with wide eyes. Anna had brought her hand to her mouth. "Maybe it was true back then," Adam continued, his voice trembling. "But it's not anymore. Not after you. You came into my house and changed everything. You changed me." A tear rolled down his face. He didn't even try to hide it. "I miss you. The voices, the laughter, the drawings, the stories. I miss waking up and not being alone. And it scares me because I've never missed anyone before. But I miss you. Every day. All the time." Anna was crying now too, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. "The house without you isn't a home," Adam said finally. "It's just an empty place where I exist. But with you, it was a home." The silence that followed was charged with emotion. Anna wiped her tears with the back of her hand, took a deep breath. "If there's still room," she said, her voice trembling, "we'll accept coming back. But I need you to understand one thing. I want to work. I want to contribute. I want to build something for myself. I don't want to be charity. I don't want to be a burden." "You were never a burden," Adam said firmly. "But I need to do this my way," Anna insisted. "I need to prove to myself that I can take care of my daughters, that I can be independent." Adam nodded slowly. "I understand, and I don't want you to depend on me. I never wanted that. I just want you to stay. For you all to stay, not out of necessity, not out of lack of options, but because you want to, because you choose to." Anna looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at her daughters, who were watching the scene in silence. "Do you want to go back?" she asked them. "Yes," Lily shouted immediately. "Please, Mommy," Mia pleaded softly. Anna smiled through her tears. Then she looked at Adam again. "Then we'll come back, but as partners, as a real family, not as guests." "As family," Adam agreed, feeling his chest tighten in a good way. "For real." Lily jumped into his arms again. Mia hugged his legs. Anna stood still, crying and smiling at the same time. "Let's get our things from the shelter," she said, "and we'll be back." "I'll go with you," Adam offered. "I'll help carry." Together, the four of them walked to the temporary shelter. Adam waited outside while Anna and the girls collected the bag with the few things they had. When they came out, the sun was starting to peek through the clouds for the first time in days. The walk back was different from the first time. There was no suspicion, no fear. There was choice. There was willingness. When they arrived at the building, Anna climbed the stairs with firm steps, not hesitant like the first time, firm, determined. Adam opened the apartment door. Anna walked in holding her daughter's hands, her head held high, not as a temporary guest, not as someone asking for shelter, but as a woman who had chosen to start over, who had chosen that place, who had chosen that makeshift family. "Welcome home," Adam said softly. "It's good to be back," Anna replied, and for the first time, it felt permanent, real, true. The following days brought changes. Anna managed to go back to her job at the neighborhood laundry. The owner had held the position for her. She left early every morning, came back in the late afternoon with her uniform smelling of soap and fabric softener, but with a smile on her face. Adam helped enroll the girls in a nearby nursery school. Nothing sophisticated, but it was clean, safe, and the teachers seemed kind. Lily and Mia started attending classes 3 times a week. The routine settled naturally, without being forced. Adam woke up early, prepared coffee for everyone. Anna drank quickly and left for work. He took the girls to school on class days, then went to the factory. He came back earlier, picked up the girls, and prepared a simple dinner. Anna arrived tired, but always with stories from work. They ate dinner together, always, every day. The girls showed off their drawings from school, sheets with paintings of trees and houses and strange animals. Adam taped each one to the refrigerator with the magnets. The house was full of sound again, voices talking, laughter, small arguments about what show to watch. Smells of food in the kitchen, stories before bed, real, pulsing, imperfect, and beautiful life. Anna and Adam didn't label what they were living. They didn't discuss definitions. They didn't put names on complicated feelings. They were partners. They were family. They were people who cared. And that was enough. One night, after the girls were asleep, Anna and Adam sat in the living room, she on the sofa, he in the chair. "Thank you," Anna said suddenly, "for understanding, for letting me do this my way." "You don't have to thank me," Adam replied. "You do everything right, you work hard, you take care of them, you're an amazing mother." Anna smiled, emotional. "And you're a good man, no matter what they told you as a child. You do have a heart, a huge one." Adam looked away, uncomfortable with the compliment. "I just did what felt right." "No," Anna said firmly. "You did more than that. You gave us a family, and you gave one to yourself too." They were silent for a few moments, just enjoying each other's presence. "Is this strange?" Anna asked. "What we have here?" Adam thought for a moment. "It's different, but it's not strange. It's right." "It is," Anna agreed. "It's right." And it was. It wasn't traditional. It wasn't what anyone would expect. It wasn't planned, but it was real, it was honest. It was built on choice and respect and genuine care. It was a family that had chosen to exist, and for all 4 of them, it was exactly what they needed. The house was no longer empty, it was full of life, of love, of belonging. And Adam, for the first time in his life, was truly home, not just in a physical place, but in an emotional place, with people who mattered, who chose to stay, who chose him as much as he chose them. And that, Adam realized as he listened to Anna making up the sofa to sleep and the girls breathing softly in their room, that was everything. It was family, it was home, it was love. Imperfect, makeshift, but absolutely true. And for the first time, Adam wasn't alone, and he never would be again. 6 months later, autumn had arrived, painting the trees gold and red. The air was crisp but no longer icy cold like that winter that had changed everything. Adam left the factory in the late afternoon, his backpack on his back, when he passed the corner market, the same one where he had bought strawberries for the first time. He stopped, as he always did now. He bought red apples, ripe bananas, green grapes that Lily loved, and he stopped at the bakery next door, picked up fresh bread that was still warm, smelling of wheat and butter. He climbed the apartment stairs with the bag swinging, but this time with a lightness in his chest. There was no more heaviness. There was no more loneliness. There was good anticipation. That feeling of really returning home. He opened the apartment door and immediately heard, "Daddy!" 2 voices shouting at the same time. Adam barely had time to put the bag on the floor before Lily and Mia ran to him. Lily threw herself onto his legs. Mia, now 7 and more reserved, still smiled broadly and hugged his other side. "Daddy, look!" Lily held up a colourful piece of paper. "I made it at school. It's you, me, Mia and Mommy." Adam took the drawing carefully. 4 figures holding hands, a big house behind them, a huge sun smiling in the sky, colourful flowers on the ground. "It's beautiful," he said, and it was the absolute truth. "Mine too." Mia held out another, more detailed drawing, a table with food, 4 people sitting around it. "It's us having dinner." Adam knelt on the floor, getting down to their height. He hugged both of them at the same time, feeling their small bodies against his chest, their blonde hair tickling his face. "You are amazing artists," he said, squeezing the hug tighter. "Are you going to hang it on the fridge?" Lily asked hopefully. "I am, in the best spots." Anna stood in the background, near the kitchen, still in her laundry uniform. She watched the scene with her arms crossed, but Adam saw her quickly bring her hand to her eyes, wiping something away. He stood up, picked up the bag of fruit and bread. "Brought dinner," he announced. "I made soup," Anna said, her voice a little choked but smiling. "And you brought the bread, perfect." The girls ran to wash their hands. Adam went to the kitchen, put the fruit in the fruit bowl that was now always on the table. Anna was stirring the pot, her back to him. "Are you okay?" Adam asked softly. She turned around. Her eyes were red, but bright. "I am. It's just, sometimes I look at all this and I still don't believe it. You know, that it's real, that it won't disappear." Adam lightly touched her shoulder. "It's real, and it won't disappear." She smiled, wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I know, now I know." They ate dinner together as they did every night. The small table, now with 4 chairs instead of 2. Steaming soup in deep bowls, fresh bread that Adam tore into pieces, washed fruit on a platter in the center. The girls told stories from school. Lily had made a new friend named Sophie. Mia had gotten a good grade in math. Adam listened to everything. Anna did too. They asked questions. They laughed at the right moments. It was an ordinary night, one of hundreds of similar nights over the past few months, but it was magical just the same. "Mommy," Lily said suddenly, grabbing a grape, "Sophie said she's lucky because she has a big house." "Oh yeah." Anna ate her soup slowly. "Yeah, but I told her we're lucky too," Lily continued, swinging her little legs. "Because now we have a house. And a daddy." Silence fell over the table. Adam froze with the spoon in the air, halfway to his mouth. Lily continued eating, innocent, not realizing the impact of her words, but Mia had noticed. She looked at Adam with wide eyes, waiting for his reaction. Anna had put down her spoon. She was looking at Adam too, her hand trembling on the table. Adam slowly placed his spoon back in the bowl. His heart was beating too fast. His throat was tight. Daddy. She had called him Daddy. It wasn't the first time the girls had used the word by accident. It happened sometimes. It slipped out naturally. But they always corrected themselves afterward, embarrassed, not this time. This time Lily had said it with absolute naturalness, as if it were obvious, as if it had always been this way. Anna reached across the table and held Adam's hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was firm. "It's okay," she whispered. "If you want to, it's okay." Adam looked at her, then at Lillian, who was smiling while eating, then at Mia, who had lowered her eyes but was smiling too. Then he looked around the room, the drawings on the refrigerator, the toys in a corner, the coats hanging on the hooks, the rug at the entrance, the house that was no longer empty, the house that had become a home, and he realized this was what he had been looking for all his life without knowing it. It wasn't solitude, it wasn't control, it wasn't a perfect routine. It was belonging. It was having people who chose him as much as he chose them. It was being needed, being wanted, being loved. It was having a place, not just physical, but emotional, internal, a place to live inside himself. Adam squeezed Anna's hand back and smiled. A genuine, wide smile that stretched his face in a way it hadn't done in years. Maybe he had never done it. "It's okay," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "It's more than okay." Lily looked at him, confused. Why is Mommy crying? These are good tears, my love, Anna explained, wiping her face. Very good tears. Are you crying too, Daddy? Mia asked softly. Adam ran his hand over his own face and realized that yes, he was. I am, he admitted, but it's all right. Couldn't be better. Lily shrugged and went back to eating, satisfied with the answer. But Mia got up from her chair, walked to Adam and hugged his neck. I love you, Daddy, she whispered in his ear. Adam closed his eyes tightly, hugging the little girl with all the care in the world. I love you too, he said, and realized it was the first time he had ever said those words to anyone in his life. Very much, both of you, and you too, Anna. Anna brought her hand to her mouth, sobbing softly. Lily dropped her spoon and ran to hug Adam too. There, with the three of them hugging him, Adam finally understood. Family wasn't blood. It wasn't biology. It wasn't chance. Family was choice. It was waking up every day and choosing to stay, choosing to care, choosing to love. It was building something together, day after day, meal after meal, story after story. It was imperfect. It was hard sometimes. It was noisy and messy and unpredictable, but it was real. And it was his. He had a family. He had daughters who called him Daddy. He had Anna who looked at him as if he were someone special. He had a house full of life and love and small moments that made everything worthwhile. He had finally found a place to live, not just between four walls, but inside his own chest. A warm place, full alive, a place called home. And for the first time in his whole life, Adam was complete. Not because he had everything, but because he had what truly mattered. He had love, he had family, he had belonging. He had chosen and been chosen back. And that, he realized as he hugged the three women who had completely changed his life, that was everything he had ever needed. The family that chose to be born. The family he never knew he needed. The family that had saved him as much as he had saved them. Perfect in its imperfection, true in its choice, eternal in its love. And finally, after a lifetime of solitude, Adam was home, for real, forever. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like, because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.